1 Caligula. In the third year of his reign, the 29-year-old emperor of Rome stood before his palace staff and announced with complete sincerity that he was a god, not a future god, not a godlike figure, a living, breathing deity equal to Jupiter himself. Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, had started well enough. When he took power in 37 AD, Rome celebrated. His father Germanicus had been beloved, and the people projected that love onto the son. The first 7 months of his reign were by all accounts reasonable. Then he got sick, a severe fever, probably encephalitis, and when he recovered, something had shifted. He began appearing in public, dressed as Neptune, trident in hand. He had a bridge of boats constructed across the Bay of Baiae, nearly 2 miles long, just so he could ride across it in a triumphal chariot, because a fortune teller had once told him he had no more chance of becoming emperor than of riding a horse across the Gulf of Baiae. He did it twice. He reportedly opened a brothel inside the imperial palace and charged senators admission. When his treasury ran dry from the spending, he simply began charging Romans inheritance taxes retroactively on dead relatives. He executed people for looking at him wrong. He made his horse, incitatus, a consul. Not symbolically, he gave the horse a marble stable, an ivory manger, and invited senators to dinner on the horse's behalf. On January 24, 41 AD, officers of the Praetorian Guard cornered Caligula in a corridor beneath the Palatine Hill and stabbed him 30 times. His wife and infant daughter were killed immediately after. He had ruled for 3 years, 10 months, and 8 days. The Senate briefly considered restoring the Republic. They did not. To Nero. On the night of July 18, 64 AD, fire broke out in the merchant shop near Rome's Circus Maximus. Over the next 9 days, it consumed 10 of the city's 14 districts. Whether Nero started it remains genuinely disputed by historians. What is not disputed is what he did during it. He performed. Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus had been emperor since the age of 17, placed on the throne by his mother Agrippina, who he would later have murdered by having her stabbed in the womb. Her specific request, reportedly, once she realized what was happening. By 64 AD, Nero was 26 years old, wildly unpopular with the Senate, and obsessed with his own artistic legacy. He genuinely believed he was a great singer. He was not. He forced senators to sit through hours-long performances and had guards posted at the exit to prevent anyone from leaving. Ancient accounts describe men faking death to escape. After the fire, he blamed the Christians. He rounded them up and used them as torches to illuminate his garden parties. As the city burned, he reportedly stood on the roof of his palace and sang The Sack of Troy in full theatrical costume. Whether this is exactly true is debated. The Romans absolutely believed it of him, which tells you everything. By 68 AD, his own generals had turned against him. He fled Rome with 4 loyal servants. When the Senate declared him a public enemy and ordered his death, Nero tried 3 times to end his own life and couldn't go through with it. On June 9, 68 AD, with soldiers closing in outside the villa near the 3rd milestone on the Via Nomentana, his secretary Epaphroditus helped him deliver the fatal blow. His last words reportedly were, "What an artist dies in me." 3 Commodus. Commodus had a plan for Rome. He was going to rename it, all of it. The city would become Colonia Commodiana. The months of the year would be renamed after his 12 official titles. The Roman legions would be called the Commodianae, and he, Lucius Aurelius Commodus Antoninus Augustus, would be worshipped as the reincarnation of Hercules. He was 18 when he became emperor in 177 AD, co-ruling with his father, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, who spent his reign writing meditations on virtue and restraint. Commodus spent his reign in the arena. He personally fought in the Colosseum over 700 times, though he ensured his opponents were always outmatched. He entered against cripples armed with sponges. He entered against wounded soldiers who couldn't fight back. He killed ostriches with crescent-headed arrows and then walked over to the senatorial section, holding up the severed head, making eye contact as if to say, "You're next." Several senators reportedly stuffed laurel leaves in their mouths to keep from laughing. He charged Rome 1 million sesterces per arena appearance, billed to the state. By December 192 AD, his inner circle had had enough. His mistress Marcia, his chamberlain Eclectus, and the Praetorian prefect Latus conspired together. Marcia poisoned his food on December 31st. He vomited it up, so they sent in his wrestling partner, a young man named Narcissus, who strangled him in his bath. He was 31 years old. His reign of 12 years was immediately declared null and void. The Senate erased his name from public record. Rome went through 5 emperors in the following year. For Elagabalus, he was 14 when he became emperor in 218 AD, and he used the position the way a 14-year-old with unlimited power and zero supervision might be expected to. Varius Avitus Bassianus, who took the name Marcus Aurelius Antoninus but is remembered as Elagabalus, arrived in Rome from Syria with a god in tow. Specifically, a large black conical stone he claimed was the physical manifestation of the sun deity Elagabal. He installed the stone in a purpose-built temple on the Palatine, declared it the supreme deity of Rome above all others, and required the Vestal virgins to perform rituals before it. He married a Vestal virgin himself, something explicitly forbidden under Roman law, divorced her, married again, and married again after that. In 4 years of rule, he went through 5 wives, several of them simultaneously. He held dinner parties where guests were buried under rose petals, so many petals dropped through openings in the ceiling that some guests suffocated. Whether any actually died this way is debated. That he did it is not. He reportedly offered vast sums to any physician who could surgically give him female genitalia. Ancient sources describe him walking the streets of Rome in women's clothing, entering taverns, and offering himself as a prostitute, then bringing the money home to his mother. His mother, Soamius, did not stop him. She attended Senate meetings herself, the first woman ever recorded to have done so. On March 11, 222 AD, the Praetorian Guard killed him in a latrine. He was 18 years old. His body was dragged through the streets, thrown into the Tiber, and weighted down so it couldn't resurface. His name was added to the Damnatio Memoriae, the official Roman erasure of a person's existence from all records. The stone was sent back to Syria. 5. Domitian. Titus Flavius Domitianus spent the last years of his reign in a state of meticulously organized paranoia. He had taken power in 81 AD at age 29, and for the first decade, he was, by most accounts, an effective administrator. He reformed the currency. He rebuilt the city after the fire of 80 AD. He strengthened the frontiers. Then, somewhere in the mid-90s, the executions started accelerating. He had senators killed for insufficient enthusiasm. He had his own cousin Flavius Clemens executed. He insisted on being addressed as Dominus et Deus, Lord and God, a title Roman emperors had carefully avoided before him. He became obsessed with assassination. He lined the walls of his palace colonnades with a highly polished stone called phengite, a reflective moonstone, so he could see anyone approaching from behind at all times. It didn't help. On September 18th, 96 AD, a freedman named Stephanus, who had been walking around the palace for days with a bandaged arm, claiming an injury, concealing a dagger, approached the 44-year-old emperor and stabbed him in the groin. Domitian, still conscious, tried to scratch out Stephanus's eyes with his bare hands. A group of conspirators rushed in and finished the job with 7 more stab wounds. His body was carried out by public bearers and buried without ceremony by his nurse. The Senate voted him damnatio memoriae within hours and smashed his statues in the street that afternoon. The phengite walls did not come up at the funeral. 6. Caracalla. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, known to history as Caracalla, after the Gallic hooded cloak he liked to wear, solved his co-emperor problem with breathtaking directness. His father, Septimius Severus, had split the empire between his 2 sons, Caracalla and Geta, on his deathbed in 211 AD. It took Caracalla approximately 10 months to act on this arrangement. In December 211, he invited Geta to their mother's apartment for a peace meeting. When Geta arrived, soldiers were waiting. Geta died in his mother's arms, bleeding out from multiple sword wounds, while she tried to shield him. She was 22 years his senior. She was reportedly covered in his blood when the soldiers finally pulled him away from her. Caracalla then had approximately 20,000 of Geta's associates, supporters, and friends executed. Anyone who had ever said Geta's name positively. His mother, Julia Domna, was ordered never to mourn, never to grieve, and to appear cheerful at public events. Caracalla spent the next 6 years at war, largely to avoid Rome and his mother. He was obsessed with Alexander the Great. He dissolved the personal bodyguard unit Alexander Alexander had used and reformed it. He made his soldiers carry equipment modeled on Macedonian gear. He named his horse Bucephalus. On April 8, 217 AD, the 29-year-old emperor stopped by the side of a road near Carrhae in modern-day Turkey to urinate. A soldier named Martialis walked up and stabbed him once in the back while he was mid-process, then rode away. He was dead before anyone else reached him. 7. Maximin Thrax. He was over 7 feet tall, or so the sources claim, likely exaggerated, but the exaggeration alone tells you the impression he made on people. Gaius Julius Verus Maximinus had no aristocratic blood, no political training, and no interest in Rome. He was a Thracian soldier who had worked his way up through pure physical dominance, and in 235 AD, his own troops murdered Emperor Alexander Severus and declared Maximinus emperor on the spot. He never visited Rome, not once in his 3-year reign. He ruled the empire entirely from military camps on the frontiers, which was historically not great for administrative continuity. To fund his military campaigns, he taxed the provinces into revolt. When Gordian I declared himself emperor in Africa, then died, then was replaced, Maximinus responded by marching his army toward Italy. He reached the city of Aquileia in 238 AD and began a siege. The city held, supply lines collapsed. The soldiers, already underpaid and furious, started looking at each other. On May 10, 238 AD, soldiers from the 2nd Parthica Legion entered his tent and killed him, his son, and his senior officers. Then they cut off his head and sent it to Rome on a pole wrapped in linen as a gift to the Senate. The Senate accepted it graciously.